Would I be the a-hole for divorcing my wife because she didn't care about my health? For context, my wife and I never wanted to get married. Both of us came from abusive homes. The abuse was mostly because our parents hated each other, but didn't want to get divorced and took their anger out on us. We both felt like marriage could trap us to someone after they became abusive, and it scared us. We started dating in high school. After we graduated, I worked dead-end jobs trying to save up money for a few years to be able to move out, but never could. I joined the military to finally get away from my parents. My then-girlfriend, now wife, and I had a long-distance relationship for a few years with me coming down to visit around once a month on 4-day weekends while she went to college. I was lucky enough to get stationed within the millage radius. She was living in a college dorm for the first few years, and was close to graduating, but suddenly had to move out since her father decided not to co-sign for her and made her move back in. The abuse got really bad. He had tracking on her car and would remotely make it honk when she went somewhere he didn't like. He wouldn't let her go anywhere besides work, school, or home. Her life was very bad. I told her that if we got married, we could get a house on base and she could go to college here. The Army would increase my pay to accommodate this. At first, she said no, since she didn't want to be locked in with someone. But one day when I got home from a week in the field, I turned on my phone and was greeted by hundreds of texts and missed calls. She had packed a suitcase with a few cloths, her birth certificate, and her SS card, and was living at my mom's house. My parents divorced soon after I left and could only take their anger out on each other. They became really chill once they were apart and even apologized for everything they put me through. It's not a perfect relationship, but it's really not part of this story, so I'll skip it. I came down with a 4-day weekend pass and we got married in the courthouse. She came up and we lived on post. The abuse was way worse than I originally thought. She refused to live anywhere except on Posey because she wanted to be in a super secure area. Her father and stepmother couldn't find her. She had panic attacks whenever she saw cars that looked like theirs. The first 6 months were the worst. She would cry herself to sleep every night. Every morning I would wake up to her quietly sobbing. I would go to work, and when I came back, she would still be quietly sobbing in the corner I left her in, yet somehow the house was trashed. I would cook food and beg her to eat it and drink water. She would reluctantly. Then she would cry herself to sleep, and the process would begin again. I got her into therapy and signed her up for college. That seemed to help some, but she was still a mess. Fast forward, and we've been married for 7 years. She has never held a job, citing her mental health as the issue. It was fine since I was very good with money and could provide for both of us. Her mental health got a little better, but has never been good. At one point, she gained 80 pounds ordering Uber Eats and Instacart. Apparently, she didn't want to go outside, so she needed food delivered. She wanted to self-harm, but couldn't do it in normal ways, since I would see and make her talk to her therapist about it. Instead, she had incredibly greasy, unhealthy food delivered to our house, and would eat it to give herself a stomachache. She spent over $10,000 over the course of a year doing this. I didn't notice because she said she wanted to feel like she contributed to the house by taking care of the finances. I trusted her to do that and never questioned her about it. My fault, I know. She was also slightly underweight by about 10 pounds when we first got married, and my mom was overweight and constantly told me to never question a woman gaining weight, so I waited too long to start asking questions about that too. Recently I was chaptered from the military. A very long story short, she started constantly attempting suicide, and because I was busy taking care of her so much, I was non-deployable for too long. They had to let me go. I lined up a job as a cop for when I got out, but ended up tearing my ACL in a motorcycle accident. That meant I needed to get it repaired and go through physical therapy before I could start the job. In the meantime, I had to move back in with my mom, and my wife had to move back in with her mom. Neither house was large enough for both of us to live. When it happened, my wife was very upset, but didn't seem to give me much sympathy. More anger than anything. She started to act better when I called her on it, though. Later, she told me she didn't want to have sex since I had gained weight since the accident. Not being able to walk/exercise and stress eating from all your plans on how to survive crumbling will do that to you. I've gained about 20 pounds in the last 2 months. Side note, she has never lost the weight and has even put more on. She is currently 50 pounds over the highest weight she should be for her height and age. I do have a belly, but I can still bench press over 300 pounds and you can still see most of my muscles. Today I got a letter from the VA saying that I would only be given 15 physical therapy appointments. The physical therapist had told me earlier that I would probably need at least 40. I went to the physical therapist to come up with a new plan since obviously the old one needed to change. When I talked to my wife about it, before I could even finish talking, she got angry and said we couldn't afford it. She then said that I would need to do more Uber because her part-time job couldn't cover it. I got angry that it seemed she only cared about how my issues affected her. After about a half-hour fight, she apologized and said that her mom is still abusive and that she is jealous that I get to live with a mom who isn't. Her mom yells at her sometimes, but it's nothing compared to what her dad and stepmother did, though. Not saying it's good, but there's really nothing I can do right now. The only jobs I'm qualified for require me to be able-bodied, and I'm not right now. She also isn't qualified to get a job that can pay bills because she's only worked fast food jobs for short stints and has a 3-year employment gap. Since we've gotten back, she has quit 3 part-time jobs for various reasons, and I feel like the burden to fix everything is all on me. I'm usually fine with that because I loved her and cared for her. But over these last few months, I feel like she doesn't care for me at all, only what I provide. It's made me fall out of line with her. Would I be the a-hole for divorcing her? I told my wife I wanted a divorce about a month ago. She convinced me to go to counseling, but she still refused to take accountability for her flaws and got mad at the marriage counselor for saying she needed to improve herself. I've been talking with my lawyer to get the ball rolling with the divorce. Last night she called me screaming that she was going to kill me. Then she said she would go on a crime spree hurting others. Then she said she was going to kill herself and hung up. I called the police and told them what she said. I hadn't heard anything back the rest of the day. This morning she called from a psych ward saying that I ruined her life for calling the police and now I'm going to have to pay for her visit. Is it true that I will need to pay for her stay there? She does not have insurance. We both live in Georgia but have not lived together for several months. Some people said they wanted an update, so I thought I'd give one. It's been over a month, and a lot has happened. To start, I told my wife that we needed to go to couples counseling or get divorced. She freaked out and had a panic attack. She threatened suicide, and it became a whole thing for several days. I talked to a lawyer to start the divorce process, but put it on pause when she agreed to couples counseling after a while. When we went to our first appointment, I gotta admit, I was nervous. Several people I knew said that couples counselors will simply blame the man for everything and never take anything into account the man says at all. From the first session, I found that to be completely untrue. She seemed to be on my side on almost everything, and my wife seemed to be listening and understanding my issues for the first time in a long time. The week after the appointment, my wife started an argument about me not being able to do much outside because standing on my torn ACL was painful. During the argument, she said that I was an idiot for taking care of her while she had her mental health problems, and that just because I was stupid and took care of her did not mean she was obligated to do the same for me. I told her that was hurtful, and she apologized. During our next therapy session, a week later, she said the same thing again. The therapist told her that she needed individual therapy because no relationship could survive if she felt that way. My wife cried and said she had been in therapy for 7 years and doesn't think she can change. That was when I knew it was completely over. I told my wife as much the next day, and she threatened to kill me, then go on a crime spree and kill herself. It was in a manic 10-minute rambling phone call, but that was the gist of it. From what I gathered from it, she wanted to kill me for leaving her. Then she said that was too easy and would go on a crime spree instead because she needed to be arrested since she can't take care of herself and thought prison would be a free alternative. Then she said something about prison probably being a terrible place to stay long-term, and it would be better to just kill herself quickly. I called the police, and she was put into a mental institution. The next day, I awoke from a phone call with the caller ID Healthcare. I answered, and she was calling from the ward to yell at me for calling the police. She said I ruined her life because she might lose her job, and now I would be on the hook for a ton of medical debt since she couldn't pay for her visit. I hung up and called my attorney, but he was on vacation for a week. Since then, things have been pretty quiet. I heard that she is out of the ward, but nothing further. I got my surgery to replace my ACL. I'm doing great in physical therapy. The doctor was impressed by my recovery, but cautioned me against going too fast since it would be bad to tear it again at this stage. My lawyer has been back from vacation for a while, and my wife is being served this week. I'm hoping that the divorce will be smooth and painless, but I seriously doubt it. She says she wants to fight about everything,